Alrighty, so for the code discussion for week 7, I am going to record a new video here for this spring 2025 semester because I went through and watched my own solution and realized I didn't do a great job. So I just recorded a new solution and I reviewed this. And I'm going to walk you through it. So here's what you want to do. Take your week 7 private, create your week 7 public, copy over your content. The first thing you're going to do is create a module for the carbon footprint. There's 2 functions there. You want to create that and then name the module CFP.js. And here's a really important thing is make sure after you do that, your actual code does run, right? Because that's an important part of this. Like right now, we know that this is hard coding the data that we've placed in here, but you want to make sure there's no errors and the code actually functions. The second thing is that, and here's where when we enter, we have 2 form submissions, right? When we do that, what happens is it just duplicates. And we know that at least at a minimum, how can we get it to just output 1? Now we're going to end up outputting multiples at the end of this challenge, but for this part, you can just think about where do I create this and where could I try to clear it through something like maybe inner HTML. That's your hint. Okay. Now that's challenge 2. Challenge 3 is the bigger one, of course, and it's got several steps. So we're going to update the output to render user input of first name and total. Okay, so right now we're rendering all of these headings and all of this hard-coded table. Okay, so let me just show you, not the actual code, but what now this changes, and I'll step you through the requirements, but just to show you, so if I said, right, I said here, boom. Now I actually get the first name as name, and the footprint, and I don't have the buttons anymore, right? So I'll go over that in a second. But first, the first thing you do, right? So here's the output I've just shown you that you need to create to get as close as you can to it. So here's the steps I recommend, kind of, and is it kind of in order? Kind of, but you may find you want to approach it differently. As long as you get the output, this is the part of just seeing how well you can translate. So first, change the reference to, and I've been talking about this in the code alongs, the reference in the for each from the text array, right? So this is the TR, the row text array, right, where we had before, where we're outputting that, again, hard-coded, to be the array of objects, right? We named it data. So then you change that reference from this to data. Now, that will cause immediately some issues, right? But you start thinking about then, and then change the table heading function to only create a heading for name and total, right? And this will be the value of the first name below, and that's where I showed you here. It says name, but it's just the first name. That's what I meant by that. And then comment out the code, and this is what's good is to understand what code is creating, because up here we're getting rid of the headings, but you also need to get rid of inside of that table render function the action buttons, because there's several lines of code there that does that. Now, once you do that, you still may have something that it's not going to be completely working at any sense. It may look broken. But now think about in the for each loop, right? As it create a table cell. So what are these? These are TDs, right? So we only had created one before. So now I want you to create one for name and one for total. And this would reference, in this case, first name, right? That's what I said here, and CFP total as from the object, because you have access to the object on the for each. Okay, so then if successful, this will output, I thought I had that in here. It actually will output something like object. Let me just do this in here while you're here, just to show you, because I had put that in there. I'm not sure. I must have not saved it when I was re-editing this file. right? This will successfully in one table row, and it may look like something like this, okay? Don't worry. That's because, and actually it may not if you actually have everything set up, but if you, actually it's up in here that that could happen. But if you do ever see object, object, and I should actually put this right here, right? That means that if you just don't, if you don't create these TDs, and then only reference the object, that's actually kind of a logical step, then it's going to say the render to the page will show something like that. So this is if you might see. Okay. All right. So let's go back here. Now that I've updated that, let's go back and look at where we picked off. Okay, so if you're successful here, the name, the output will name, oh, actually that is in one row, and run table row, right? Because in this case, all you've done is create, not all you've done a lot of work at this point, created a cell, right? A TD is a cell for the name and the total, right? So this one is a challenge. And so now attempt to have each submission, each object, and then what that means. And that's why it's important to understand each time you submit, right? Each time you submit. Okay, so let's do another one, right? Each time you submit, you're rendering a new object, right, to that table. But in this case, the code is in its final state as I have it here, completely rebuilding both that heading and those rows. Okay. And here I talk about now how do we, now this is if you have that successful, you would see something like that. You may not be yet, you may have each submission on the same row. And so that's the last step, is actually to see, is attempt to have each form submission on its own row, right? Again, this is a row, okay? And I give you some hints. You can move the existing create element for the TR inside the for each. And you can also move the append to the table body into the for each. Those are two hints for you, okay? Now, I get that this is a challenge. Do as much as you can, right? And then once you have this is my code before I've do your commit message my code before I reviewed other students' code. And then you can view my solution. I just, like I said, recorded an updated solution to this one because when I listened to my last one, it wasn't real clear, okay? I understand in reading, it's not reading, it seems like a real step up from it is a step up. This is true, okay? That's why I've kind of broken it down to give you, you may not get all the way through it, but one thing you can do, right, is really attempt a challenge, right? And this is what I said here. And then watch the solution. It's listed next. And then, but to get all the points, come back here and talk about what you learned. And this is what's great about, this the same model we've seen in the code alongs. Like get as far as you can and then go watch the solution if you didn't get all the way there. And if you did, you're going to want to have that code as well when you come into your week 8 as well. Okay. All right, so but if a student who did not need to watch the solution, because there definitely could be some here, right? Then tell us your approach. How did you get there? Or if you need help, like ask us for help. I'll take this off because I'm actually including it now, right? Whichever path you select, make sure you've posted your URL for your public repo, your GitHub IO, and then use two substantive replies by reviewing other students' code, okay? To get full points. To get all of them, you have to output first and last, and that's what I was showing here. All right, hope this helps, and I look forward to seeing your output. And please reach out for help because this is a really important understanding of how we render table data based on our form inputs and iterate over our array of objects.